There is a kind of man who moves through the world without trembling, not because his life has been gentle, not because fate has favored him, but because he has walked through his own darkness and did not look away. In the old mountains of Japan, this path had a name, Musha-Shugyō, the warrior's pilgrimage. It was not a journey for glory, not for reputation, not for others to applaud. A man would leave behind his home, his comforts, even his name, carrying only a blade at his side and a vow in his chest, to master himself or be broken by the truth of who he is. He wandered into forests where silence was louder than war. He slept under skies with no witness. He trained where there was no one to praise him, nor to save him if he failed. There, fear was not something to run from. It was something to face, hold, study, and understand. For most men today, the enemy is no longer outside. It is the restless mind, the undisciplined spirit, the life lived without depth. Musha-Shugyō was never about becoming dangerous. It was about becoming unshakable. If something in these words stirs quietly in your chest, remain here. Walk with me. The path begins now. He had lived like most men do, doing what was expected, moving where the currents of life pushed him, never questioning why his chest felt tight when the world around him was quiet. He woke each day, worked, returned home, slept. Yet the silence before sleep always felt like a room with a locked drawer he could not open. Something was missing, though he could not name it. One evening, while walking near the edge of his village, he encountered an old warrior sitting beneath a weathered cedar tree. The man's eyes did not look at him. They saw through him. And with a voice steady as still water, he said, "A blade never drawn grows dull. A spirit never challenged grows weak." The words struck deeper than he expected. That night, the words followed him like a quiet wind. He looked around his small home, the worn mat, the dim lamp, the same walls he had always known. Everything was familiar, but none of it felt alive. He realized the comfort he clung to had not been protecting him. It had been containing him. Safety had become a cage disguised as peace. So before dawn, he packed lightly. A simple satchel, a small knife, a journal he had never dared to write in. He did not leave a note. There was nothing to explain, for no one else would understand the hunger he carried. As he stepped beyond the village gate, fear rose in his chest. But he did not turn back, because for the first time, the fear meant he was finally moving. The road was not kind. Days passed in silence, and silence has a way of amplifying everything a man tries to outrun. When the sun fell and the world turned to shadow, the dark felt alive. Branches cracked in the forest. Wind whispered like voices he could not quite understand. And the longer he walked alone, the louder his own heartbeat became, like a drum echoing inside a cave. Fear was not a shout. It was a whisper, subtle, patient, cunning. At night, he imagined eyes watching him from the tree line. A presence, a shape, something he was never able to see, only feel, the same way one feels a memory that hasn't yet happened. He gripped the small knife at his belt, though he knew it was useless. The real enemy was inside the chest. He remembered the elder's words and tried something that felt strange. He breathed slowly, counting 4 on the inhale, 6 on the release. The tremor in his hands softened. The pounding in his ears thinned to a steady thread. Somewhere in the rib cage, a hidden switch clicked. Later, he would learn the name. Vagus, how breath could ease the amygdala's fire, how a body teaches the mind to stand still when the mind refuses. For now, he simply practiced. He tied a red thread around his wrist, a vow in plain sight, and placed his journal on the ground like a locked drawer finally opened. "Fear is a teacher," he wrote, "and I am done skipping class." The wind shifted. The imagined eyes receded. Then, from beyond the trees, the faintest rush of water. A river he hadn't noticed before, as if it had been waiting for him to quiet down. And by following that sound, he would meet the man who fought without making a sound at all. The river revealed itself like a ribbon of polished glass, moving without sound. And there, upon a flat stone near its center, stood a man. He moved with a sword, but not as one preparing for battle. His steps were slow, precise, unhurried. Each motion flowed into the next like water returning to the sea. There was no aggression, no strain, no ego. Only presence. The young warrior watched, unable to speak. This was not training. This was prayer. When the monk finally sheathed his blade, the river resumed its voice, as if the world had been holding its breath for him. The monk did not greet him with words. He simply gestured to sit. And in the quiet, the young man felt something inside him shift, as though the storm in his mind had just found its mirror in the stillness before him. They sat together for a long while, saying nothing. The young warrior felt the familiar urge to speak, to explain himself, to justify his presence. But each time the impulse rose, the river's calm made it unnecessary. Silence began to feel like a language, one he had never learned but somehow remembered. Finally, the monk spoke. "Your mind strikes before your hand does." He tapped the young man's chest, not hard, but with the precision of someone who knew exactly where a person hides their panic. "Before the enemy defeats you," the monk continued, "your own thoughts will." Training began not with battle stances, but with breath. Hands resting on knees, back straight, eyes soft, not closed. The monk called it Mushin, no mind, the state where action flows without interruption from fear, doubt, or ego. And as the sun lowered over the water, the young warrior realized this journey would not sharpen his blade first, it would sharpen his being. Yet mastery has a way of stirring the ego, and the ego does not yield quietly. Strength changes a man long before he realizes it. Weeks passed. His breath deepened. His movements grew clean and steady. The trembling that once haunted him in the dark no longer held authority. And in that newfound steadiness, something subtle began to grow. Not peace, but pride. He watched his reflection in the river and saw not who he was, but who he wanted others to believe he had become. The monk noticed. Monks always notice. But he said nothing. One morning, the young warrior announced he was ready to spar. Not asked, announced. The monk simply nodded. What followed lasted only 3 seconds. A step, a shift of weight, a blur he could not track. And the young man was on the ground, breath punched from his lungs, blade pinned beneath a single unmoving hand. The monk didn't look victorious. He looked disappointed. Humiliation is a peculiar kind of mirror. It reflects not the face, but the cracks. The young warrior's throat tightened. His teeth clenched. Anger flared, not at the monk, but at the image of himself he had been secretly feeding. The version of him who imagined he was already becoming someone. A man of skill, a man of stature, a man others would one day admire. The monk knelt beside him, not to comfort, but to deliver the lesson. A cup already full cannot be filled. The words burned. He realized then that ego had disguised itself as progress, that pride had walked beside him like a shadow wearing his own shape, and that the greatest opponent he would ever meet would be the one inside. He lowered his head, not in defeat, but in recognition. The monk nodded once, as if acknowledging a door had finally opened. But mastery demands more than humility. It demands loss, a loss he has not yet tasted. Seasons turned. The river froze, thawed, flowed anew. His hair grew longer, his hands grew steadier. The pulse that once raced beneath his skin now moved like a slow drum, calm, deliberate, unforced. One morning, the monk simply said, "You are ready." No ceremony, no conclusion, just a truth that had quietly ripened. The young man bowed, not out of duty but gratitude, and began the walk back toward the village he once called home. The road was the same, yet his steps were not. Where he once clenched his jaw, he now breathed. Where he once scanned shadows for threats, he now saw only shape and movement. The world had not softened. He had strengthened. But as the village roofs appeared beyond the hill, a quiet realization settled over him like dusk. No one here would understand what he had become. Seasons turned. The river froze, thawed, flowed anew. His hair grew longer. His hands grew steadier. The pulse that once raced beneath his skin now moved like a slow drum, calm, deliberate, unforced. One morning, the monk simply said, "You are ready." No ceremony, no conclusion, just a truth that had quietly ripened. The young man bowed, not out of duty, but gratitude, and began the walk back toward the village he once called home. The road was the same, yet his steps were not. Where he once clenched his jaw, he now breathed. Where he once scanned shadows for threats, he now saw only shape and movement. The world had not softened. He had strengthened. But as the village roofs appeared beyond the hill, a quiet realization settled over him like dusk. No one here would understand what he had become. He walked the familiar path through the gates. Children ran past him. Merchants argued. The old well still creaked in the wind. Everything was just as it had been, yet it felt distant, like returning to a dream he had once lived inside, but no longer belonged to. A man who once mocked him for being quiet called out, expecting the old reaction, the defensive laugh, the shrinking posture, the agreement to avoid conflict. But the warrior simply looked at him, not with anger, not with pride, but with clarity, and the man fell silent on his own. For there is a power beyond intimidation, beyond violence, beyond reputation. It is the presence of someone who no longer wrestles with himself. Nothing outside could move him now, because he no longer moved against himself. He had not conquered the world. He had conquered the one who observes it. The fearless man is not born. He is built in silence by choosing to face what the ordinary man avoids.